Hello and welcome in. My name is Deborah Jeffries with HR Answers, and you are part of our monthly HR Lunch Bunch. And today we are joined by Keith Mayfield, and we're talking about 401ks, 403b, all kinds of tricks, improvements, updates. I don't know, the whole kit and caboodle. So, Keith, I want to welcome you to the group. We've got some live in-person people here. We also are, as always, now recording our programs so that those of you who were not able to join us, something popped up, or you had to jump away for a quick bit of time, you're able to join us. So we're glad that you're watching even on demand or perhaps even just listening. So we're proud of that. For those of you who don't know, we do this on a monthly basis. It's the first Wednesday of every month. We've been doing this for over 10 years. I think we're close to like 16, to be frank with you. So we're very glad to have you all with us. Um, when HR Answers doesn't feel like we can tackle a topic by ourselves, well, and even sometimes when we can, we like having guests. So Keith and I, just a teeny bit of background, we actually got to meet each other at a conference. We sat down and chatted, and I talked his ear off and then said, "And what do you do?" And Keith said, "Oh, I'm in the space of benefits around 401ks." And I said, "Tell me a little bit more." And then I said, "You know what? That is not something I'm an expert on at all. And I wonder whether or not you might be interested in." So we talked a little about Lunch Bunch. We talked a little bit about an article for the newsletter, and we kind of put our heads together. And I said, "You know what? What about December?" And he said, "Well, it's kind of a busy time, but it's not bad timing. So would love to participate." So guess what? I said, "Keith, let's talk." And here we be. So Keith is the expert. He's been doing it for years. This is a wonderful time to, one, get info, two, be able to ask your questions. Truly, this is intended to be a discussion. Now, I promise you, he has a PowerPoint. You should be able to see it. If you cannot see it, please let us know. You also can have a copy of the materials. This is being recorded, so you can come back and watch it again. You can share it with others. That's just fine. We're happy to send supplemental materials after the fact, but it really is intended to be some education as well as education sharing with each other and a discussion, as we always try and do, because I know HR professionals are busy. We want to take this time, kind of quote lunch time, to educate each other too. What's working? What are you doing in your space? So that's why discussion, talk to each other, okay? So it's not mandatory, but you also can use the chat box as a feature to communicate. And I try and help out in that feature so that Keith can focus on you. If you're comfortable with having your cameras on, even if you're eating lunch, we like to be able to engage with you. So Keith, welcome into HR Lunch Bunch. I am so glad that you are here. Welcome to our little neck of the woods. How you be? And welcome in.
I'm pretty excited about this, Deborah. Thank you. And thank you for the team at HR Answers for all the work that you've done to the last 16 years to get to the culmination of your 2023 season today. So I'm taking a lot of credit for your work on that one, but I'm excited about this. Kind of consider it the first present of my holiday season. So thank you. So,
Oh,
um,
wow. There's some verbiage for you.
yes. So I look forward to sharing a lot of ideas on this as we go today. As you said, Deborah, this is completely open. I love the workshop style presentations where I can both present, but also answer your specific scenarios. If you've got something in mind specifically, bring it up as we go. Oftentimes, those are the most valuable conversations throughout this. So I guess I will kick off the formal presentation from here. And again, thank you. And thank you to all the attendees. Great to have you on here. My name is Keith Mayfield, and I'm pretty much a nerd at this stuff. That's been my entire career. So we will click over here. And there we go. So I'll start this with my brief commercial, but it's not as much as anything. If you're listening to a presentation, I always like to know who, what, and why am I listening to this person. So I am the president of Planit 401k. I do have multiple designations in the 401k retirement plan industry. The listed up top is accredited investment fiduciary analyst, certified plan fiduciary consultant, and certified fund specialist. Those are a small part of my experience, but those are the credentials that I kind of bring to the table today. And I started Planit 401k years back with the sole goal of helping organizations do a better job of running their retirement plan benefits. So where I fit into your worlds is I work with a lot of vendors, a lot of record keepers like Fidelity, Vanguard, John Hancock, T. Rowe Price, whoever. So they're the products you use. You also use third-party administrators or accounting consultants. And many of you have a retirement plan advisor. That's what Planit 401k is. We actually join your firm as a member, as a fiduciary member of your 401k team. We become your retirement plan advisor, responsible for guiding your plan towards success. So that's basically what we do. The reason for the phrasing, the naming of Planit 401k is because a plan, by definition, is a detailed goal for achieving an end. And there is a lot of different components to the retirement plan industry that if we can do all of these, the culture, guidance, management, so forth correctly, then we create successful outcomes for you and your participants. So I have been doing retirement plans since 1997. I've had roles in almost all different components of this industry, from the investment side of it to the accounting TPA side of it to the sales side of it. And I've decided to get out of all of those and just become a support item for you and your company and your participants. So that's what Planit is. So
Wow, that's a lot.
yeah. So just some good information there. So I love this phrase up here because I do go off on rants. I love soapbox issues. And what I've got to present today is just a lot of my experience and my best concepts and goals about my industry. There's a lot of things this industry does really, really well. And there's a lot of stupid stuff we do really, really poorly that we just don't think about doing. So we just kind of keep running with it. And all right. We just do things. Well, why do you do it this year? Oh, we did it last year like that. Well, why did we do it last year like that? Well, we did it the year before like that. And a quick little background on the entire 401k, 403b industry is everyone would assume that these were created for a purpose. And the truth is, back in 1982, these were an accident. There was an attorney by the name of Ted Benna that said, what if we interpret the tax code this way and allow employees to defer into these products? And it created the entire 401k industry from there. So it wasn't well thought out. It wasn't well designed. And it was all done pre-computer systems. So there's a lot of conversation I hear even today. And the answer is the same exact answer that I heard 25, 30 years ago when I was working with this before computers had really entered the market. So I'm like, all right, let's update a lot of legacy stuff. So not going off on a rant here today. What we'll kind of cover today is there is something that I have as a huge hot button of mine that I think my entire industry misses out about is the culture of employee benefits and the culture of your retirement plan product that you as a company are putting forth to your organization, to your company, to your participants there. So the culture of it, what the value to you, what the value to your participants, and what the costs are. I work with my clients and we have an optimal plan outcome that we track down. What that optimal outcome is and what adjusts it. We'll talk about some tactical changes, plan oversight, plan participant outcomes, investment services. And then some new stuff. We'll talk a little bit about the Secure 2.0 items. A lot of that's going to be tough because it's really specific to each company, but we'll do a quick overview on that. And there we go. So I like to start this as we go through today. There's 10 items here that we'll kind of go through in different various levels of depth based on either some of your feedback and just as the conversation goes. But I really look at this thing and I say, your 401k, and I'll focus mostly on 401k conversation, although this applies perfectly, and I work with this also in 403bs and other retirement plan types. But there is an employer value to offering these benefits. Any employee benefit you offer, there's a value as an employer to do it. And there's an employee value, both real and perceived. Like the numbers in a 401k are the financial results are the real value. But the perception is really the number one thing that goes back to employer value. If your employees don't perceive value in your employee benefit, you're not getting the value by offering it that you're put into it. If your employees perceive value, then you're getting more benefit to the employer. So one of the main things I like to talk to clients about is, what is the employer value of your benefit? And to me, that seems like it's the foundational reason a company offers a plan. Recruit, reward, retain, and retire. I just throw in the fourth R because I'm in the retirement industry. But having that as the foundational reason changes a lot of the conversation you have, and it actually improves both the employer value and improves the employee perception as well as employee outcomes. So all of this keeping in mind as we go through these 10 different items today, I'm going to try and keep a focus as we go on how do you build employer value, how does it apply to that, and how do you build employee perception on that. And we'll kind of go through all that. And for each of you, it kind of wraps up with a conversation down here about just kind of, I tried to rhyme it a bit, but is HR a star with this value? Trying to focus these things on both on the organizational benefit and how HR can help bring this out quite a bit. So with that, we should care a lot about retirement plan benefits. I mean, this is something that in my industry, and I'll tell you quite honestly, we have this much value in the workplace from employees, from things like that. We are really, the bar set tremendously low for people caring about their retirement plan benefits. But quite honestly, this is the most impactful benefit that will affect employees throughout their workforce, aside from a catastrophic medical item or anything. But for an organization to kind of keep in focus on the foundational reason for an organization to provide employee benefits, is to have a positive impact on the perception of working at the organization. Recruit, reward, retain, and retire. And then I've got this down here in a little item here. This is generally ignored as a plan goal. I've been in more than 1,000 conversations with plan sponsors, from recently doing what I do, but historically supporting roles in a lot of areas. And the perception of the benefit is almost never talked about. It is just something that we all talk about: the fees, the investments, the fiduciary, employee education, so forth and so on. But it's never really had a focus on how are we dialing this in to benefit your employer benefit at recruit, reward, retain. So we look at all of that. And then the workforce, the vast majority of workers who will spend 20 plus years in retirement. I need to reword this, sorry, but their standard of living from age 65 to 85 will be extremely meaningfully impacted by their workplace retirement plans. We as an industry kind of think about, oh, you're our employee, we've got you on board for 3 or 4 years, we're going to focus on that. And I understand that from an employer organization, and we're going to mindset of how long do we have you as an employee. But from an employee side of things, they should be looking at this. I've got 40 years of income, a little bit with your company, a little bit with the next company, a little bit with the last company, but I got 40 years of income to pay for 60 years of expenses. There is not a single individual in your workforce that can say, oh, I don't have a retirement plan, because they only have 40 years from age 25 to 65. There's no difference in the math for any of us. And what they do every single one of those years impacts the fact they have 40 years of income and they've got another 20 years of expenses after that to get to retirement. And yet, just like that, we don't really talk about the employer value. With employees, we still have this mindset as an industry, and it's all of this is my industry that sets this up, and we guide you as as organizations, employers. Okay, let's go see if we can talk our employees into actually caring about our retirement benefit that we offer. And to me, that just seems like a silly concept that we still deal with. So, you look at those two ideas. In my mind, organizations aren't given the recruit, reward, retain concept of, hey, let's have this be an employer benefit. And employees aren't given the really truth of the matter of, this isn't an option. What you do every year or don't do, because employees can always do 0%, but what they do or don't do is extremely meaningful for them. We need to raise the careability of this industry quite a bit to match the reality of it.
Keith, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
With your comment on that slide about 40 years in, but for 60 years of expenses, will you explain that to me? And forgive me if I'm being a little dense here. I'm trying to do the math a little bit,
Okay.
only from the standpoint of if I'm 65, because there's an assumption I'm retiring at 65. And as someone who's approaching that number, I'm not planning to retire at 65. I'm just saying that. And
Okay.
yes, I know this is being recorded and my employer can hear this. But with that said, 60 years of expenses, I'm not sure I'm planning to live to be 125 either.
So I took that line of something that I talked to employees about, and I'm just
Or
trying
is
to
this
pull
or
one.
is this an element of two people or just the sheer fact that the compounding of expenses are getting greater
No,
as time goes
this
on?
is surely a factor of me doing a poor job of representing it on here. So the concept is the 40 years of income is from age 25 to age 65. That's 40 years of income. It's a normal working career for most individuals. The
Right.
concept of 60 years of expenses is from age 25 to age 85.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, so
Gotcha.
I
Okay.
apologize for that. When I'm working with directly with employees and I use that comment, and I realize now I should have explained it better, I actually have a timeline up in front of them that starts at age 25 and goes to age 65, and it's a year by year by year by year by year timeline, and it shows income years. And then each of those years, it'll also show deferral years. Did you defer? Did you save money into a retirement plan? What was your deferral? Was it 10%? Was it 0%? And so it shows them graphically that 25 to 65 for building for income earning years for wages, basically. And then from age 65 to age 85 for expenses.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And while I know that we're not talking about long-term care scenario here,
Mhm.
I
Sure.
will share with all of you, I've recently had, and when I say recently, I mean in the last 3 weeks, I've had two separate conversations with non-family members about the fact that they are moving their parents, and their parents are in their 90s, from one living facility into another because money is starting to dwindle and what can they afford in terms of where they're living, in terms of the savings that they've had because they're in their 90s. The most recent one was on Sunday. Keep in mind, this is Wednesday, and she's 93. So when you say 85, one of the things that I'm thinking about in terms of our employees and making this a real conversation, because part of this is for HR, making this a real conversation so to somebody who's in their 20s and saying this is a really good idea for you to be thinking about now. Would you like for retirement? And on one hand, making sure we're not crossing boundary lines of, advice and whatnot. They're not thinking about when they're going to be 85 or 90, right? And I think those of us that are on the call, we can relate to that in terms of maybe some of the things that have been said to us by employees at probably all ages. And just that element of here's this woman who says, Deborah, this is the third time I'm going to move my mother because of affordability. And if we are not thoughtful, she's going to run out of money because she's 93 and what she has saved for and what I can afford on her behalf. Right. And so I'm looking at those numbers or thinking about that now, looking at your screen here and going, you know, this is our reality of modern medicine, people doing a better job of taking care of themselves, living longer. Our retirement dollars, how far are they going to take us?
I agree completely. And we ignore it as an industry quite a bit, all those concepts. It's still the early slide that says, well, can we talk our employees into caring about this rather than they should assume they already care about that. I've got a guest speaker here, so sorry for that. All right, sorry, kiddo. So this is one of the slides I actually pulled up one of the presentation decks that just talks about that in my employee presentation, because I want to build exactly, Deborah, what you're talking about. I want to build the idea that says all of you, this is your timeline, retirement age 25 to earning years 25 to 65. And then this has a run out from age 65 to age 89 for retirement years. So I want to build that into the conversations I'm having with employees. And then at the same time, then talk to them about, well, what does your saving years look like? So from age 25, someone might keep 100% of their salary and put 0% of their income away. is one of the concepts and it's totally off track in the conversation, but one of the concepts I really work on is I hate that my industry focus on a 2%, 3%, 6% deferral because those numbers seem meaningful to people. There is no difference in anyone's take-home pay if they put 2% or 3% into this. They will not notice a bit. But it's that difference right there is the number one thing that all employees have to do correctly. It drives 90% of their success. Is if they go instead of a 2% number, if they do a 3%, or if they get to 5 or 6, that is 90% of your employee success. That's the only real thing we should be focusing on in this industry, is getting that number correct. And I'll show you why in a moment. I might as well go down this road. But I believe employees have a lifetime. I'd start to say they're with you a couple of years, but they have 40 years of savings opportunity. And it's not static. We don't expect people to be always in the green, always deferring, because they have life changes. But this is what happens and how it goes. And then this is the reason why I say what I said about the only thing they should be focusing on. And there's other conversation to build into this. So I'm kind of cutting into the middle of the conversation. But if an employee keeps 100% of their income through their career, they save zero, they end up with $0 of account value and $0 in retirement plan income. Now, if they take a little bit of pain and suffering on a per monthly basis and only keep 97% of their income for current needs and save 3% for their future needs, this one is just a 20-year graph and it's a small amount, but they will have saved a significant amount of money, much more than zero. But what happens if I, as an advisor, can have a good conversation with that employee and say, you know what, you make 100% of your current wages, you only put you're keeping 97% of them today, and you're okay with that. Can I just talk you into keeping 94% of your current wages, which is, again, a small little change to your take-home pay? But if I can talk you into going from a 3% deferral to a 6% deferral to have a small amount of pain, that is double the amount they will have in retirement for their standard of living. Going from a 3% deferral to a 6% is twice as much contribution. You will have twice as much money in your standard of living at retirement. That teeter-totter is the most impactful thing that we need to do correct in this industry, is really get employees to really stop focusing on just 1 or 2 or 3% as a big number and get them to that 6 to 9% and get them to understand that teeter-totter of a little bit less current income, but you've got 20 or 30 years in retirement standard of living that you can double really easily just by going from a 3% to a 6% deferral. So that right there to me is the absolute key to what we all should be doing as financial advisors, is trying to get people to defer the right number. And because employees make 3 decisions: how much to defer, what my investment is, and who's my beneficiary. Beneficiaries take off the table. Investments, I always take off the table for my groups. The only number I want participants to focus on and care about, the only thing I want to educate them on to do correctly, is your deferral amount. Everything else we can automate, we can work in the background for them. That I can't do for them, but we can promote it in a lot of different ways.
Gotcha.
All right, sorry.
And it's a good graphic to look at.
All right. So keeping on this theme, foundational reason for doing this benefit is to have a positive impact on the perception of working at the organization. What are we purposely doing as an industry to expose the value of employee benefits to our employees? The idea that they will accidentally receive a benefit or perceive a benefit just by, we work here, we've got employment, it's checked off on the form, that doesn't build perceived value. We have to have an actual thought out process to continually try and drive value of these benefits. Do they perceive they're part of the benefit? A lot of companies, incorrectly, but a lot of companies use the language of we have participants and we have non-participants. What happens if you're 30% of your workforce you consider a non-participant? Well, you're no longer getting the employer value from 30% of your workforce if they consider themselves a non-participant. Do we provide enough positive experiences around it? I know the 401k is generally not a positive experience. It's a little bit about the pay. It's a quarterly statement. It always seems to show losses, even though values always go up. But how do we have those conversations? How do we drive positive experiences around the benefit? And do we just expect employees to appreciate it? So in my opinion, I mean, I'll go out to companies and I've done this and they say, okay, great, you're here. It's our annual meeting. You've got four and a half minutes to drive value of this to our employees. Get at it. All right. Can't do a lot in that time. So getting into the plan specifics a little bit more. So target best retirement plan outcome. It's a weird concept, but it's something that I haven't really seen much in my industry. If we've got these products, are we getting the most out of them? And this is really what your advisor should be assisting with and what we should all be focused on, because if we're not considering this, then you'll never get there. You need kind of my tagline, you need a plan for it, sort of thing. So your best retirement plan for each of you, what is your best retirement plan outcome for your organization? If everything is perfect, if your match, your employer contributions are dialed in correctly, you've got the correct entry eligibility dates, vesting is one that, in my opinion, is always overlooked as a employee retention tool that drives employer value. So you should have a reason for vesting and the value that it brings. If investments are correctly used, if participant rates are what they should be, if indeed employees have chosen the appropriate salary deferral amount, if the fees in the plan are appropriate, everything in your plan is running at the optimal level. That's really something that as you go through, you should have some concepts about what you're trying to accomplish throughout the plan, or your advisor should be guiding you on these concepts. And what that results in, and I know I get a little mathy here, but this shows a brand new plan that starts in calendar year 2023. So it has 30 employees. Each of the 30 makes 70,000 of income, and there's a 3% employer match. So this is more the concept than the numbers. But if that current plan, as it's set up, the participation rate is 66%, the average employee salary deferral is 6%, the efficiency of the employer contribution formula vesting score, this is basically an efficiency number I look at, is all your plan design set up correctly and used correctly? Are your employees in the correct investment, and are there advisor fees? So in this one, I have no advisor fees in the current plan. But if you've got a plan clicking along, this is not a bad plan, by the way. 66% participation rate, 6% average salary deferral rate, employer efficiency of what they're doing is pretty high, an average rate of return to employees. A lot of times employees are a little more conservative than they should be within the retirement plan framework, is at 7%. This plan over this 10-year period, as a plan level, will grow. At 5 years, it'll hit 736,000. At 10 years, it'll hit $1.8 million. It's not bad, okay? And that's what a lot of plans are clicking along like that. They're doing that. But what happens if we optimize a few of these things? Well, let me say one more thing about this. This $1.8 million, that is the value of this plan, the financial value, which you can consider a perceived value to your employees. They will perceive, we can use this as a measurement because perception is impossible to measure. So let's create some yardsticks in the way, a value of $1.8 million. The value to your employer is $1.8 million also. That's kind of the value there is $1.8 million, the perception that your employees get and what they're doing. And especially since this plan is putting in the 3% match of income. This employer is putting 3%, perhaps 3% of your total payroll as a commitment to this retirement plan. That is a lot of commitment from an employee organization. What value are they getting back from that wage difference from doing that 3%? If your plan is clicking along here, you've got about $1.8 million in value, perceived value to the employee and the employer. So this plan has now, there's a comment. The reason I put it like this is because I want to make a big distinction between the cost of a plan and fees and the value of a plan and benefits. This plan now is an advisor, they're paying 0.5% in fee. Most times I'm in a conversation with business owners, they're focused on fees. They say, what's the advisor fee, investment fees, product fees, all of that. Fees are this much of your plan, optimal plan outcome difference. I'll tell you that in a moment. But so I'm not trying to focus on, hey, you always have an advisor, but if this plan now goes to 80% participation, 8% average deferral, 100% efficiency, and 9% rate of return, because you've got someone in there helping guide the plan and the results, you have bought yourself an extra little over $1 million, $1.1 million in plan value. Because now this plan, its trajectory over 10 years, it will have $2.9 million in value versus $1.8 million. That is extremely impactful to your employees' retirement plan outcomes going back to the perception, how we're building employer value out of this plan. Now, as an organization, you got 2.8 million in value versus our 2.9 million in value versus 1.8 million perceived value. Not doing this correctly, and this is my biggest phrase here, not getting to these numbers that you could. And notice I didn't do 100% participation, and I didn't do 10% deferral, because that's not appropriate for a lot of companies. There are a lot of companies, you might have 20% of your workforce that just should not be contributing today. They're at 0% currently. They'll move up as their situation changes. So I'm not saying the best outcome, but the optimal outcome for this company. That is a massive difference in what it could be worth to the employees on a financial value, employees in a perceived value, and the employer for the time and effort they're putting into this. So I look at that delta there and I say that is what we should be looking at, always getting to an optimal plan outcome. And these are soft, to me, these are fees. To me, the participation rate being lower than what it should be, average deferral being lower than what it should be, these are fees because they have reduced this number down to here. The advisor fee is a fee also because it reduces this number from here down to here for the cost of the advisor. So all of these have the same effect on the plan. The only thing a fee does is it reduces the value, the long-term value of your plan. So how much did that impact? We've got $1.1 million difference here. That advisor fee of 0.5% reduces this chart by $70,000. I see constantly companies focusing on what's your fee, what's your fee, what's your fee, and they should. That is a good measure to look at. But if this has a $70,000 impact on this chart, that's not much compared to the difference between moving these other fees correctly. So I look at it and I say, okay, well, here's the cost. Now here is the value that we should be bringing in my industry as an advisor team, or the value that as an employer organization, I would be ticked off if I'm not at this optimal plan rate. Because I'm offering I'm putting 3% of it payroll in, I'm offering this benefit, you at HR paying attention to this, and we're only at this rate here, which is not where our plan should be. We're missing a tremendous amount of value that we should be earning from this benefit that we're offering. Okay.
Wow.
Within that value line, one of the things I do with my company is I look at their job postings, and I often see, hey, there's a great amount of job posting information about the job, things like that. And then there's always the section of employee benefits, income. Washington State, we've got to disclose income up here. But with that, also it says, there's always often a line that says 401k or 401k with company match or 403b. I'm like, do people even know what a 403b is? Do the people looking at being hired in, what's a 403b? What does that mean? I think your job postings, if you are having an employee benefit, does your job postings adequately reward your company for offering that? Does your language in your job postings get your prospects excited about coming to work at your company or organization? So I work with mine on the language of that, look at how they're doing it, how they're, and I say, well, I wouldn't even say 403b. I would say, I would have a sentence that says something like, we help our employees build income for retirement through our 403b retirement plan. Something that if I'm someone applying to a job, I'll go, okay, I know what that is, and it's a benefit. And quite honestly, a whole different conversation I heard, but having a 401k or 403b is like knowing how to play chess. People consider it to be a valuable thing. So, side note, different conversation, different kind. But having that on your job postings that you actually have, that is a cultural shift for your organization to have it on there. When you talk to employees, how do you leverage your employee benefit? Or when you talk to your prospective employees, how do you leverage your employee benefits in your interviews? I'd love for each of you or your organization to have one paragraph that you use, 2 paragraphs to say, we are really excited about this suite of benefits we offer you. They are going to do this, 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 and this for you. Whatever the suite is, you don't have to have the deepest suite of benefits, but you have to have pride. You have to have some kind of culture around the benefits you're offering. Otherwise, you're not getting that recruit portion of the recruit, reward, retain, the reason to do employee benefits in the first place. Employer contributions for companies that do them, or organizational contributions. That is a huge thing that I think we all skip off, and a lot of people misunderstand. I'll get to that one as we go a little bit. But how you present and build your 401k or 403b culture is a big question to improve employee perception and provide value. I love my little Delbert cartoon here. Never be able to run that far. So, it's true. A lot of people don't really know what a 401k is. It's even though in our culture it's out there, a lot of people have the right concept, but almost always when I get up in front of a group of people, they're like, "Gosh, it's complicated. I don't get it." And then I'll go back to there's three things you need to do right. Beneficiaries will take off the table. Investments will take off the table for you. You need to put your right number down. That's all you need to do. And suddenly they're like, "Oh, well, that's just simple and easy now." So, but the perception there as you go.
I would ask the people who are online with us, how about your younger generation? If you reference 401k, do they know what a 401k is? Or do you have to explain that to them?
I would say 50% of who I onboard in younger generations actually do have some sort of grasp of it, but that's for administrative positions. If they're coming in entry level, there is a complete lack of awareness of or appreciation for ever needing to retire. And I use a lot of visual cues to get them to understand what that matching means. For instance, our company does an automatic 2%, and then they match up to an additional 2%. And, I literally do hand cues. I was like, okay, so if they put in 2%, and then you put in 2%, and then they match 2%, now what are we up to? And they're like, oh yeah, 2%. Okay. And
I love your math, Heather. If you put in 2 and we put in 2, then what are we up to?
yeah,
We're up to 6.
we're up to
Wait,
6.
wait a
So now
minute.
you put in 2, but you're getting 6.
Fair enough.
Right.
Yeah,
4, but yeah, anyway.
Right.
and I use myself as the butt of the joke as a Gen Xer who never
Yeah.
thought to have retirement. I'm super excited about this.
There you go. Kelly, what about you? Whether you can unmute or chat box, younger generations understand 401k? I mean, even what it is, let alone, the vocabulary, let alone the concept.
Oh, you're asking me?
Well, there's Kelly and Ken. I see you too, Ken.
Oh, oh,
Go ahead,
okay.
Ken.
Yes. I think people knows 401k. They have heard for what is a 401k, but they don't know the details, of course. So we have to explain 401k, what it is. And that's the starting point. And the company matching 2%, then that's company's money to go to your individual account. So 401k account is not the company's account; it's your own account. So that makes them more comfortable about 401k. That's kind of starting conversation what we do.
Okay. Well, and you're, if I understand correctly, Ken, still the consulting firm, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay. So it's smaller organization, and Jocelyn's with Heather, and Kelly's written in that says, I agree with what's been said so far. It's a little bit of an awareness, not quite understanding it. And part of the reason why I asked the question, and maybe some of the folks that will be listening on demand later, is that I think sometimes our younger generation, whether or not they've had a job before or not, whether or not anybody on the home front is explaining anything to their going to be off to work full-time, first-time job, has said anything to them or not, because then all of a sudden they go off to the job, onboarding, time to sign up for benefits, and they're like, I don't know what this is. I don't know what that means. Has anybody prepped them to, because again, they're not necessarily thinking long term and what does that look like? So if they don't even understand what it is, let alone, but when you bring it up and they're like, what's that? Let alone all the benefits. So depending on how large an organization is and what's being offered. And part of this also is awareness. I'll put just a little disclaimer. I have a 21, almost 22-year-old. Because I do what I do, I gave him a heads up when he went to work for Pepsi and said, you're probably going to have all these kinds of conversations. You're going to want to probably come back and think about this. And because he lives at home right now, he has very few expenses. Please put it all in there. You will want. I'm hoping you will thank me later in life. Do it now while you can. Other stuff will pop up, but get a good the foundation. And good conversations were had. And so I just don't know if everybody's doing those kinds of things. And so that's why I ask you all, what is it you're experiencing with our younger generation just coming in? Because not all of them have had lots of work experience and understand even the benefits are a thing.
So on the chat box right now, Kelly and Jocelyn are talking about how employees don't understand percentages and how they understand dollars. So examples, and you're absolutely right. So this is one that I use in employee enrollment meetings also, to convert the percentage numbers into a biweekly paycheck. And I'll adjust this based on the companies I'm with, the biweekly, monthly, whatever it is, and the income ranges too. So I agree with you. The concepts we use in this industry, we talk about them regularly, and we talk about them regularly in a way that other people don't easily understand. So we need to do a lot better as an industry of that.
Like a little book for dummies on 401k.
Absolutely. So we also, my company, we customize the enrollment material and online onboarding material with clients, and we get rid of all the forms that my industry uses and make them just, here's what we think you need to know in context of how HR continues their conversation also. So we try and build it in with a repeatable runway that HR uses. So this is one I really want to hit on, because this is in my opinion, this is one of the top 3 things my industry does incorrectly. So we set up our plans without including a distinction between participant and non-participant. So just quickly think for yourselves, how many of you have participants in your retirement plan and have non-participants in your retirement plan? Most companies, most organizations talk about that difference. The truth is, once your employees hit your eligibility and entry dates, at that point, you are not asking them to enroll. The legal truth is, at that point, they are a participant in your plan by definition. You are asking them to customize their numbers, customize their salary deferral, because they become a participant at 0% for all companies. Or Heather said, you've got auto-enrollment, so they become a participant at 2% for your company until they make a salary deferral change. But you're not asking them, hey, do you want to be part of our plan? And this is something that language-wise, I correct with a lot of my clients. I'm like, I don't want you to ask if they're in this plan. I want you to congratulate them. And we do this. Hey, we're excited. Congratulations. We're so excited to have you as part of our retirement plan. Welcome to our plan. Now customize your information. Are you at 0%? Great, if that's where you need to be. Who's your beneficiaries? What's your investments? We've got these covered for you. But welcome as a member of our team, of our retirement plan team. Love to have you in here. You're building that perceived value with employees. And the more they actually, and I mean, the results behind this is spectacular. The more people are like, oh, I'm in it. Oh, well, okay, cool. Let me think about it as I'm in it as a participant. You get a much better mindset and much better result that way. There's no such thing as opt-out, by the way. You guys have all heard that language. Oh, we got a 2% auto-enrollment unless they opt out. I can't tell you how much I hate that language. They are not opting out of anything. They're not leaving your plan. They're not getting out of it. They're not participating. Change the language from opt-out, or I'm going to save the punchline. I promise you, each of your 401k forms probably has a box that says, I elect not to defer. How much do you want to defer? Oh, I elect not to defer. Oh, I elect not to be a participant. Get rid of all that crap and just have them put 0% down as a percentage. It's the exact same thing. You're not opting out. You're not deferring. You're not part of the plan. All of that's crap. You are just a 0% participant. You're contributing at 0%. And that changes so much perception and so much language and so much value. Then if 30% of your employees don't perceive they're a participant, then your organization is failing to achieve any employer value from 30% of your workforce. That is a massive fail for what, as an employer, say we're offering this benefit, what's the value to us as employer value? It's a massive fail on my part. I don't care if 30% contribute 0%. as long as they perceive the value of what your organization is doing for them. Employer contributions, I'm not going to spend much time on this one because we're around getting low on time. But 401k, 403b employer contributions are part of wages. Most people separate them, go, oh, it's an employee benefit. I have some tech firms I work with. Oh, we're not going to do matching contributions until we're profitable, because that's an employee benefit. I'm like, no, it's a part of wages. You'll pay $150,000 and you'll raise it up to $190,000 for the right candidate, but you won't use a component of that wages for recruiting and rewarding. And I'm going to pull up one of the flyers that we've got for you today. Sorry, I got a track on the flyers to pull up. There we go. This is a great, there we go, article. I've known this. It's the first one I've really seen that actually goes through, and it goes through this. And I'm just waiting for it to come up. It is a study about the perceived value of employer contributions to employees. And that should be available to everyone by made available. Basically, it goes through this, says, we find that dollars paid in employer contributions to 401k plans have double the effect on a firm's recruiting success relative to wage dollars. Having the ability as an employer to say we have employer matching or employer profit share or employer contributions of any time into a retirement plan, people perceive that as more valuable. If you're putting in $1 in their retirement plan side, they perceive that as more valuable than $1 in the wage side. So as you're reviewing your payroll spend, your wage spend, always consider employer contributions into your retirement plan as part of your overall wages for your participants, rather than an employee benefit cost. And kind of link those two together, because again, recruit, reward, retain. This is more valuable for white collar workers. Blue collar workers, the difference between earning $40,000 a year as wages versus $41,000 a year as wages is valuable. So you've got to watch out a little bit. But anyone that makes more than $100,000, they would rather make $100,000 and have $5,000 contributed to a 401k than make $108,000 in wages. So, you know, you look at that, and this study goes through. There's a lot of good information in it. So $1 increase in contributions to retirement plan is nearly twice the effect of the recruiting success as a $1 increase in wages. All right. This is something that I'm just going to hit quickly. This is the coolest thing in the world right now. For companies that are just now for the first time offering a retirement plan, there's some up to $5,000 in IRS credits to offset the cost of it, $500 tax credit to offset auto-enrollment, and they can contribute up to $50,000 in employer contributions and get up to a $50,000 tax credit back from the government for doing so. So this is really revolving around brand new retirement plans, though, but it's just spectacular for small businesses that are starting to start out.
Wow, that is wonderful for folks that are brand new to the process.
The investment manager role, switching gears quickly. My industry, when we started out, you as organizations and companies, you were responsible, you were personally liable for plan level investment decisions and investment options. That means at a do-it-yourself level, you have the time, skill, and accept the fiduciary liability to pick and choose and sign for the investments that are in your plan. That's the way we grew up in this world. About 15 years ago, you started to have financial advisors that would share that liability and that workload with you, and they call that a 321. Now there's what's called a level 338, where you as an organization can simply say, we don't need to be involved in this. We do not need to be liable and responsible for picking and choosing our funds. We're going to hire an investment manager to do it and delegate it off of our shoulders and onto them. So all of that liability, responsibility, and workload, this is the only level you as an organization can say, we no longer have the risk of picking investments. You say you got $2 million in your plan, $2 million of risk, you just shifted off to investment manager. I can work on all three levels with my clients. I honestly do not know a single reason that I could tell any of them not to do this. I charge the same, so it's not a pricing thing. It doesn't really matter to me. This one is much more efficient, much more effective, And I don't know if any of you have investment committees. You can still have the committee, you can still work with investment manager, but if they're doing all this, now you can have less of an investment committee and more of an employee results committee, which I think is more valuable to your plans. Secure 2.0, that was a legislation passed in December of last year. Congress passed it, dropped in all of our laps and said, figure it out. So, and it truly figured it out. So all new plans beginning in 2025 for newly established plans are going to be required to have automatic enrollment. There's a lot of conversation in the industry about doing this or not. Done correctly, automatic enrollment is one of the most valuable tools you as an employer can have. I have it in all my plans. A lot of them are like, oh no, we're not going to do this. We're not going to force people. The language we've used to discuss this with sponsors is horrible. This is simply the best tool that's out there. And if you change the language and change the concepts to the fact that this is a one-time thing, that when they come on board as a new participant, you say, welcome to our plan. We've got you enrolled at 2%. Here's the paperwork to customize this to whatever you want to. I'm not forcing anything on them, but I love it. But Congress is getting more and more into this. And that's probably going to be a plan requirement for all plans relatively soon after this, not just new plans. Catch-up contributions required to be Roth is delayed. I'm going to skip most of these. Long-term part-time eligibility is more. Secure Act allows long-term part-time workers to participate in employee-sponsored plans, and those people who qualify for the previous rule must be allowed to defer in 2024. If you have questions on this, check with me afterwards or check with your team, because this will impact some different organizations. But again, more people are going to be involved in this in the future than less. The government's really pushing universal usage of the private retirement plan industry. I love the fact that for those of you that have small account balances in your plan, you can now sweep them out up to $5,000 or less in account balance. Going forward, it'll be $7,000 or less. These are not automatic, by the way. These are things you need to readjust your plan design, talk to your plan 401k, 403b team about, and implement them in your plan. They're just not automatic. So starting in 2024, participants no longer need RMDs from their Roth accounts, required minimum distributions. And then this one, there's 3 things on here that have to do with individuals' emergency savings accounts in 401k, 403bs, emergency distributions in them, and emergency expense withdrawals. I don't like these provisions inside your qualified plan. I actually like the idea of having a separate, there's emergency savings accounts available for low-income individuals or people that might want it. One of the ones I looked at and used is a company called Secure Save. I love it. It's just a payroll feature. All you do is just divert a portion of their income into the Secure Save. It's not an ERISA thing. It's not a monitored government rule. There's not a lot of rules. There's almost no expenses to a company. It's just an available thing you can give your employees where they can build up the financial literacy concept as well as the emergency savings account. So that's a company called Secure Save. Culture, I kind of mentioned earlier that a lot of companies give me a couple minutes, but employee benefit culture doesn't create itself. You need to put the time, the effort, consistency. You need to have a reason. You have to have conversations about making sure you are building, you're offering employee benefits. Are you getting the employer value out of that? So we'll go back and I'll kind of close up with these slides. The foundational purpose of any employee benefit is actually to benefit the organization. If your organization doesn't have that as a main focus of say, we're going to do this and we're going to get the value back to us as an organization to do it, I think you're missing the point of that. And that sounds a little harsh, but the more your employee benefits work for your employees, that is the key to them better benefiting your organization also. So it's a win-win on both sides. I think most companies receive less than half the available corporate value of their retirement plan benefit. And that value, again, it's by improving perception. And I know that the 401k, 403b industry, we've never really guided employers on that perception. It's not inherently built into our websites, our packets, our products, anything we deliver to employees. So we have to focus on that. And if you keep these items as a foundational goal and go, okay, the more you kind of ask the question, how do we benefit the organization with this? You will also benefit employee perception. You'll also benefit employee results. And this is kind of the last one. I think that my job and our industry's job is to help HR's job do this. And the better we can build this value, the better HR is able to look at and go, okay, this is actually working for me as HR and fulfilling my goal to be a representative of this organization and do better to earn value for the benefits this organization is providing. So keep an eye in mind, learn the conversations about how the culture of the employee benefits you instill impacts recruit, reward, retain. Keep an eye on, hey, what's our job postings say? What's our interview process say? When we're meeting with our employees, are we rewarding them? Are we retaining them via these benefits? Is that perception actually working that way? So that is what I have for today. We're just briefly over the hour, so I will open this up to any more questions. And I really love the chance to have this conversation, and Deborah, the chance from HR Answers to be involved and in front of everyone today. Thank you.
Oh, no, thank you. I think there were some good takeaways in terms of how to think about things, or maybe some questions to ask. I don't know, Heather, Ken, Kelly, I think there was some, like, I hadn't thought about it like that before, or some good things to take back to our teams, to the people that we're discussing things with, and say, might we alter some things? Might I suggest?
I'm definitely going to be thinking about how to restructure, because I do all the onboarding for our company. How to improve explaining those percentages and rates, and if you're starting now at whatever age, what does that mean to you, kind of conversation, so that they can get that kind of going in their heads. Because yeah, a lot of people don't understand it. You say deferral and they're like, the what, huh? It's like explaining any other benefit. I loved your point about saying it's part of your pay. I'm already doing that. I am not including this in my interviewing. I also do all the recruitment. Gotta love an NPO. I wear all the hats. I'm gonna figure out how to do that. Do you have any suggestions on, how to include that, or where to include that in an interview process? Especially given that I'm not always talking to administrative higher end people. I also have a lot of real entry level driver and other entry level positions where people are lower income, and they're, you say take something out of their paycheck and they're going to get really nervous. So
yeah, well, what I would look at is I would start that conversation with something along, hey, we're excited you're here for the interview. Let me tell you about our culture of employee benefits. In addition to the wages we pay you, we have a culture that we're trying to accomplish with these employee benefits. Okay. And that will lead into a conversation about the perceived value of the benefits rather than the features and benefits, or features and options of the benefit. Because really what you're trying to do is just tell them, hey, we care about our employees. We put this in place for you. We want you to value it. And then you're not talking about deferral rates, investments, things like that. You're saying our retirement plan culture is one where we know that, gosh, we want to be able to help you use your income for retirement to help you have a better standard of living. There's a lot of things you can go to do to fill in that. But if you just look at all the benefits you have and fill in, we want to talk to you about our employee benefit culture.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. I was thinking, Heather, in terms of, when we ask sometimes at the end of an interview, can you think of anything else that you'd like to share for us to know in considering you as a candidate, right? And if depending on how we're ending the interview, let me also share with you one thing when we think about the culture of who we are here at Ride Connection and what we offer. One of the things that I will share with you, and I really like that vocabulary, Keith, about, a suite of benefits, depending on what all we all are offering. As a not-for-profit, one of the things that we've worked really hard on is pulling together a suite of benefits to offering. And we view benefits as an extension of our culture and who we are and what we bring to the table. And we have many, but one I'd like to feature is our 403B savings and retirement planning package or set of services or something to that extent. And there's a reason why that's so important to us, or something along those lines that gives a little bit about the culture or who we are or why we've gone that route, or and if you were to become an employee, you'll be able to learn more about that. But one of the things we're really impressed that I was impressed in when I came here, or something that we've recently been able to add, is that 2-2-2 kind of scenario. And that really does add up for whether people are joining us in their 20s or 30s or 50s, that really can be a wonderful scenario. So I share that with you as something you're not going to see on our website per se, if you're looking from a joining our staff. So being able to kind of tweak that approach for any of you who are listening now or later, how can we start thinking about doing this a little bit differently? One, to differentiate ourselves from our competition. When we think about recruiting people and turning that process into something a little different than what people are doing or how they're approaching it, one, from a making it memorable for our applicants, but also how do we make that we're unique and special and a little different here, and sometimes really it's just changing it up a little bit. So sometimes that's that vocabulary, but I really do like that approach. That's I like that. I like that a lot.
You mentioned just
So,
changing it a little bit. So within this one small phraseology change I would make is I would not say we have a 2% match in your 401k. I would
well,
say,
if it's a 2-2-2
well,
or something like that, because it's the compounding, right?
I
So
would,
what does that look like?
instead of that, I would use the phrasing up to 2% of your wages, or up to 2% of your income, or up to 2% of your what do you, when you talk about, hey, we're going to pay you 50,000 a year, what word do you use for that?
Gotcha.
I would say up to 2% of your annual income goes into your retirement plan for you, because that crosses over from being a 403B thing of, oh, we're going to do 2% if I match this or that, but now it's a component of wages over here now. And not only are we going to pay you 50,000 a year, but we're going to pay you 50,000 a year and up to another 2% basically raise into your retirement plan of your wages, annual income.
Gotcha. Nope. Gotcha. Great. Wonderful. That's why you're the expert, right? Well, and I think that's important. I think many people have worked places where there is no contribution on behalf of the employer. There's no contribution, there's no match, there's no anything. It's
Yeah.
all given on behalf of the employee. And isn't it wonderful that there's still an opportunity to make that and have something for futuristic? But not every employer is doing that. So even being able to have that is more so than many are offering. So being able, and from a purely recruitment, knowing what your competition is doing is an important element so that you know whether or not you are at kind of quote market. Are you being competitive with things, or are you not? And what is the other benefit you might be featuring? Because that one is not as competitive with others.
Right.
So yeah, wonderful. Well, we are at that time. And thank you, Keith, very much for sharing your knowledge and information. Thank you for those of you being participative here live and perhaps later on demand. We really appreciate it. And again, my name is Deborah Jeffries here with HR Answers. First Wednesday of the month, HR Lunch Bunch from 12 to 1. It's our pleasure to have you. Look forward to our conversations in 2024. And yes, we will be having a program on January 3rd in 2024, right after the holidays. So I will be hosting you, myself, and I. All three of us will be with you at that time. So otherwise, enjoy the holidays. We hope they are safe, happy, and celebratory, whatever you may be doing. So again, Keith, thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it. And for all of you who were here with me, thank you again. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, Deborah.
Bye-bye. You betcha. And